program do not necessarily reflect those of KXVS, the Voice of Stockton, or its parents, affiliates, management, and staff.
Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another amazing episode of the Phone Booth here on KXVS, the voice of San Joaquin. My name is Ed Heitman, and joining me in the studio today, as always, is my good friend and co-host, Brian Rodriguez.
Hello.
How you doing today, man?
Pretty good, pretty good.
Good to hear, good to hear. Now, for those of you who might be first-time watchers to our show, the Phone Booth is a show completely dedicated to the world of pop culture. Anything from movies to video games to TV shows, you name it, and we do our very best to cover it. Now, unfortunately today, it was a bit of a slow week this week. I mean, some things happened, and we got some stuff to talk about, but unfortunately we were unable to really gather too much information. Now, of course, this brings me up to the first thing that I'd like to talk about. Of course, this is a show dedicated to you, the audience. And as always, we're always interested in hearing about whatever content it is that you would like for us to talk about. So if you're tuning in and there's anything ever that you'd want us to talk about for a discussion piece or something in a future episode, be sure to let us know. You can comment in the video, you can message the Voice of San Joaquin, or if you know us personally, you could also message us directly. We'd be more than willing to hear your feedback. The Phone Booth also has a Facebook page. Be sure to look us up there as well. And yeah, we'd love to hear your feedback. Now, without further ado, let's enter our first little segment of today's show, which I like to call the weekly wrap-up, where we just talk about some of the things that have happened within this week in pop culture. Now let's begin. Starting off, a few weeks ago, Chris Pratt had stated that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 would be using James Gunn's script, despite his ousting from Marvel. Now, Kevin Feige, president of Marvel Studios, has also confirmed that they will be using this script for Volume 3. In all honesty, I'm really glad that we're able to use James Gunn's script, because allegations or not, James Gunn did a pretty good job at writing the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise. I remember when it was first introduced, I had absolutely no idea who these people even were.
Barely anyone did.
Barely anyone did. And he somehow managed to make them extremely popular in the MCU. So I think it's pretty cool that they're using his script. What do you think, man?
I think it's a good thing. I think it's because part of the why the movie succeeded and did so is because of James Gunn's writing. And while there's definitely going to be a difference without him as a director, too, I think this is ultimately a good thing. I think it's the best possible outcome from this situation.
I agree, man.
Because there were some... David Bautista, who plays Drax in the Guardians movies, was actually threatening not to be in the next one if they didn't use Gunn's script. Which... he may have actually gone through with. He was threatening to break contract and deal with any potential lawsuit from Marvel. And
I remember that. He was even willing to be taken to court.
It was
everything.
Yeah, it was. He was so passionate about having James Gunn's story told because apparently he's great friends with him. Well, it looks like hopefully there will be no court battle, but we can't really promise that because who knows what the next dumb thing will be.
Yeah, this whole Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 thing, it seems to be causing a lot of stuff just seems to be happening, mainly because of the fact that they seem to be having troubles finding a director to handle the movie in question. I remember one director that a lot of people wanted to work on this project now that Gunn was gone was Taika Waititi, the guy who worked on Thor Ragnarok. Mm-hmm. And when he was asked about the project, even he said that he didn't want to touch it because it was Gunn's project, which is really interesting because it's not very often you hear somebody say, I'm not working on this movie because this movie was this person's love child. I don't want to work on it, you know?
Yeah.
It's interesting. Anyways, man, take it away to the next topic.
Okay, so most people found Adam Levine's Super Bowl performance meh to boring. However, apparently over 50 complaints have been filed with the FCC against his performance, mainly because he took off his shirt. Now, the main crux of the issue actually goes back 15 years to the infamous 2004 Super Bowl halftime show where Justin Timberlake exposed Janet Jackson's bare breast on live TV. And there was a huge amount of blowback. The network had to pay $500,000 in a fine. Janet Jackson issued an apology, and her career never really recovered. I mean, she still has a career, but it took a definite blow. Meanwhile, Justin Timberlake, the guy who actually exposed her breast, nothing really happened to him. And the main complaint here is that there's a definite double standard against the way nipples are presented in media. If it's a female nipple, it's inherently, sexualized and it's obscene and not meant for network programming or TV. It gets a higher rating. But male nipples, you can have a man go around shirtless for an entire episode and have it rated, TV GA. What? I don't remember what TV ratings are. Anyway.
Yeah.
The main complaint here is that if the Janet Jackson incident caused, a fine and an apology, then this one should too. So there's not a double standard. So there's just a standard. Because if we are going to unnecessarily sexualize female nipples, mainly because some guys think they're attractive, I don't know. I'm not getting into that.
Yeah. Bottom line is, it's unfair that there is a double standard like that going on. A lot of people cracked jokes, honestly, about Adam Levine and everything. I heard some people say that he looked like Steve Carell on stage and everything. And there was plenty of other controversies swirling around that as well. I mean, I remember people were mad at the Super Bowl halftime thing because of the whole thing regarding the song from SpongeBob and how it didn't get played. But this is definitely a very concerning issue because it does show that there was a double standard going on.
It should also be noted that this was not the only focus of some FCC complaints against the Super Bowl. There were also complaints against the airing of the trailer for Us, Jordan Peele's new horror movie, as well as a trailer for Guillermo del Toro's... Oh, God, I don't remember the full
I believe it's Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
Yes, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. There were complaints that those were not fit for a general audience that was watching the Super Bowl, which, you know what? That's fair.
Yeah, you know what? Considering that it's the Super Bowl and there are a lot of families gathering around to watch it, it's not necessarily the best moment to really show trailers for horror movies, per se.
I don't think you can really say that you don't expect children to be watching the Super Bowl. So I do think they should be more careful about that, because some of those trailers are terrifying. I mean, to grown adults.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's just... All in all, the Super Bowl halftime thing was a real crash and burn this year, and you can only hope that next year things are a lot better. There's not as much controversial things going on, and just a decent performance. On to the next little topic though. Hugh Jackman and Patrick Stewart were awarded with Guinness Awards for longest career as a live-action superhero. They both played their roles for 16 years and 228 days.
Yep.
Man.
Yeah, they both started as Wolverine and Professor X and X-Men, and now they both ended the careers in the same movie in Logan in 2017. 16 years. Though I would argue that maybe Hugh Jackman should have gotten the award instead of Patrick Stewart, because he appeared before Patrick Stewart in X-Men and appeared after Patrick Stewart's final scene in Logan. So technically he was... It's very pedantic, but it's like he has 2 minutes on Patrick Stewart, or 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's fair. But it is pretty interesting, though, because, I mean, when you really think about it, they really are the longest-lasting superheroes in movies and whatnot.
Yeah,
I remember the X-Men. Wasn't X-Men one of the first few Marvel movies to come out? It even came out before the first Spider-Man movie, didn't it?
Yeah, it came out a year before Spider-Man, and honestly, with Dark Phoenix coming out in 2019, X-Men is going to be the longest-running continuous superhero series. It will have gone from 2000 to 2019, because I think we can all agree that they're not going to continue with the same universe after Dark Phoenix once Marvel gets the rights to it and does whatever they're going to do to bring it into the MCU. And yeah, there have been reboots and this and that, but it's always been the same universe.
Yeah, you know what, and that's the thing too. A lot of people usually, because I remember when X-Men First Class came out, people kind of assumed that it was an alternate universe or something in the past and whatnot. But then you have Days of Future Past, which connected both of these universes together, so they were still able to continue onward, but in a completely different layout, different scenario and everything, which isn't really something that you get to pull off with too many movie franchises, you know. So while Hugh Jackman and Patrick Stewart did get awards for longest careers as superheroes, I kind of have to agree the X-Men franchise would probably get an award for the longest lasting superhero film franchise. Yeah. At least that's what I think, you know.
If not by number, then just by, you know, years around, because I think Marvel would beat them in terms of number of movies. Good lord.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. Anyways, take it away, my friend, to the next topic.
So Gwyneth Paltrow has announced that she'll be retiring her role as Pepper Potts after Avengers Endgame. This will be her 7th movie playing the character, I believe. 7, yes.
Yeah, 7.
7. Because it was Iron Man 1, 2, and 3, Avengers, then Spider-Man Homecoming, and now it's going to be Infinity War and then Endgame. So 7, yes.
Yeah, 7. Yeah. And you know what, honestly, it's kind of a shame to see Pepper Potts go, because even though she was kind of a background character, I still enjoyed her chemistry with Tony Stark. You know, they had a really good dynamic going on, nice back and forth banter and everything. And this all just comes along with just a lot of depressing stuff that's revolving around Avengers Endgame. Especially with the fact that people can't really understand for sure whether or not it's going to be Captain America or Iron Man who dies in this movie. And there's just so much stuff going on around this, man. But all in all, it's a real shame to see Gwyneth Paltrow kind of just step out from her role. But we kind of have to appreciate the fact that she did stick around as long as she did.
Yeah, she was in the first movie. She's going to be in Endgame. That will make it 11 years she's been playing this character.
Yeah, and you know what? That's pretty good. I mean, I think that's pretty neat. You know, so, I mean, Gwyneth, if you're watching, which I kind of doubt, but still, nonetheless, props to you. I have to have hopes, okay? I have to have hopes.
Okay.
On to the next topic, which is some sad news, kind of, in the gaming industry at least. President of Nintendo of America, Reggie Fils-Aime, is retiring. Reggie was at the company for 15 years and quickly became one of the faces of the company. And you might know him for the very famous "My Body Is Ready" meme that he made ever so famous. And he is being succeeded by Doug Bowser.
Yeah.
Now, I have to admit, I'm not too familiar with a lot of people in the games industry. I'm still fairly new to learning names about people in the development companies and everything. But one thing that I can say for sure is that Reggie, he was a good guy.
Yeah, he was at every, you know, big Nintendo event. He was presenting games. He was at E3. After they stopped doing conferences, he was in the Nintendo Directs. Pretty much everyone who was even sort of paying attention to video games knew who Reggie Fils-Aime was. And that's pretty impressive. And he just had the genuine honesty about him. It was clear that he loved games as much as we did. And he was as excited about these as we were. And while I'm sad he's going, I'm happy that he has had a full career and has decided to, you know, retire and pass the torch to Doug Bowser. That is his real name. And yes, it's spelled exactly the same way.
Yes, it is. You know, and quite honestly, I'm not usually much of a documentary kind of guy, but I'd be very interested if they did make like a documentary or like some kind of Netflix special talking about the backstory of Reggie and, you know, how he ended up into Nintendo and everything. It seems like the kind of guy that I'd just like to hear his backstory, you know?
Yeah.
It'd be interesting.
He came to Nintendo after being an executive at a meat packaging company.
Very interesting.
Yeah, he was not like a veteran of the video game industry. This was his first role in video games, and he just went running with it.
Which makes it even more interesting that he had such an impact, you know? Such a nice guy. Anyways, go ahead and take it on to the next little topic about one of our favorite games ever.
Okay, so Bethesda has banned a player from Fallout 76 for having what they deemed as too many in-game items and too much ammo. The player's defense to this is that he's played 900 hours of Fallout 76 since it launched. 900 hours. I actually did some math on this. That is over a third of time since Fallout 76 came out, like all of time, assuming an 8 hours of sleep per day. This guy was spending half his waking time playing Fallout 76 every day since launch. That is kind of impressive.
It's impressive and it's mind-boggling.
Some people are portraying this as he plays too much video games, which, yeah, probably, but it's also, he has a dedication and this deep love of Fallout or Bethesda that inspired him to spend half his time in this game that most people had written off after the first few days.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really sweet. So, of course, Bethesda looked at this hardcore gamer, this person that loved them, that loved their game, and banned them.
It's such a bad move on Bethesda's behalf to do this. Because the fact that he played 900 hours... We trash talk 76 a lot, and there's a lot to trash talk about. There's a lot of issues with the game, but somewhere out there actually is a community of people who truly enjoy 76. You know, the fact that it's completely open for you to do whatever you want, there's a lot of people that find things to do. I remember a while back, I remember seeing this in like some games article. You don't have to trust me on this, but I remember reading an article a while back where this player, he had accumulated such a high bounty, because if you do kill people, a bounty has risen on your head, and the caps increase the more you do bad stuff. And this guy accumulated so many caps in his bounty that he declared himself an endgame boss and challenged everybody to try and kill him, and that was how the game ended. There are people out there with creative means to play this game, and the fact that somebody would play 900 hours, just so much dedication put into it, and to be rewarded with being banned, it's real depressing.
Yep.
It is.
Most game studios would treasure a fan like this, because this type of fan is rare, someone who loves your games this much. Not Bethesda.
This is usually the kind of player who gets some special dedication to him, like an NPC or an item or something.
Yeah, fan goodwill, player support, they don't want any of that. They just want to keep burning this thing to the ground. Should also mention that Fallout 76 put out a roadmap for the next few months of gameplay. I haven't looked too extensively into it because I just can't help but feel that the moment they launch any of this, something's going to happen. Because it's Fallout 76, something has to happen.
Something is going to happen, and odds are whatever they release, someone probably already found it in that hidden developer's room anyways.
Yeah.
I don't know. But, I mean, if any of you out there play 76 and you do enjoy the game, by all means, enjoy the game. We're not saying that you shouldn't, It's just there's so many issues revolving around the game in itself that we have issues. But we'll move along to the next little topic. Now, Epic Games is suing Fortnite Live, an unofficial fan event that ended horribly. The event was supposed to be a festival celebrating Fortnite with an archery course, rock climbing wall, and of course dozens of PCs to play Fortnite on. However, parents and fans were met with an underwhelming experience, as over 3,000 attendees were met with an archery range that could handle 4 people, a climbing wall that fit 3 people, and banks of computers that required an additional fee to play, on top of the $16 to $26 tickets.
Okay, I should mention that this was in the UK, so it was not actually dollars. It was a different amount in pounds, but converted to dollars, it's $16 to $26. Just getting that out there.
Now, one thing, too, is that for an event dedicated to Fortnite, and I remember looking into this as well, there was a lot of stuff that wasn't even affiliated with Fortnite at that event.
Yeah, it's an unofficial fan event, but it's like an archery course. There's no archery in Fortnite. A rock climbing wall. There's no rock climbing in Fortnite. You build up things. You don't climb things. There was a go-kart course that I forgot to mention. I mean, there's a golf cart in the game now, and there was a
shopping cart.
Yeah, shopping cart. Thank you. But I suppose those are both carts of a sort, but it's still not on theme. And on top of that, having computers with a fee to play them for a free-to-play game. So essentially, you could have gotten the entire Fortnite experience this festival offered for free just by staying at home.
It's real unfortunate, man.
Mm-hmm.
And Epic Games, rightfully enough, is suing Fortnite. Suing Fortnite Live for this event because they are really dedicated to giving players enjoyable content. Really good stuff. You know, they want to make sure fans are happy. And for this event to come out, hardly anything related to Fortnite, and basically just profited off of the name itself.
Yeah.
They have every reason to sue these people, you know, and I can't feel bad for the event organizers. And what's amazing enough is that the person who led the event, I forgot their names, but they have even stated that they hope to have more Fortnite live events in the future.
They did say that, and actually that was before Epic started suing them. Now they have said that their business has completely shut down due to the lawsuit, and that they will not be holding any future events to the, I guess, size of relief of people everywhere.
That is, yeah, that actually honestly is a huge relief, because it's a real shame. They really ripped a lot of people off during that event, and that is real unfortunate. Man, I don't know. Anyways, man, go ahead and take away the next little topic.
Steam has announced that they will be removing the video section from their storefront. They introduced a videos platform a while ago to sort of branch out from games and, you know, have more digital marketing. It had movies, it had TV shows. I was looking it up recently. It had a few seasons of Rooster Teeth's Ruby on it, which surprised me. I believe it was the first platform to have Kung Fury on it before that Netflix acquired the rights to stream it as well. And I think it was a good experiment, because I don't think Steam needs to just be video games as long as it focuses on the core. But I think it can, you know, branch out into other things. But given how generally unknown the videos front was, I think that this is probably just the amount of money they were making from it didn't pay for the upkeep of it, I'm guessing. And now they've announced that they're shutting it down and they're going to be refocusing on their core audience of gamers. And you know what? It's a little sad that it didn't do well. I think it could have been good for Steam to, you know, branch out beyond gaming. But if they can't, I think it's good that they're not trying to, you know, just keep throwing money at it and hoping it works. They're just saying, you know what, this failed. We're going back to doing what we know how to do. Especially now that, you know, they have competition.
Oh, yeah. Honestly, I'm not really surprised that the video section ended up getting removed on Steam, because I never really heard of anybody using Steam to really watch movies in the first place. I stumbled upon it by sheer accident. I was downloading the Ruby deck building game because that recently got dropped low-key, and as I was looking it up, there was also volumes for Ruby available to watch on Steam, which confused me because I didn't really understand that there were movies there to watch, you know? And it didn't really feel as though it was really advertised all that much. It was just a feature that got dropped low-key into Steam and everything. And for a website that's particularly known for games, where when it comes to shows or movies, you have streaming sites like Netflix and everything, I can understand them wanting to try and branch out to movies and everything, but it's also not really their market audience, you know? Yeah. It's just, I don't know. Not really surprised by the outcome, you know?
Yeah, you know, I think it was a good experiment. But experiments fail sometimes, and that's fine.
Yeah, you know, it's fair enough. Anyways, folks, that about does it for this week's segment of the weekly recap, and now it's time to enter trailer talk. And in this segment, Brian and I like to talk about some of the trailers that have dropped within the week. Now, we're going to start off with the first trailer to yesterday. Its U.S. release date is September 13th, 2019, starring Lily James, Himesh Patel, and Kate McKinnon. And the synopsis is that it's about a struggling musician who realizes he's the only person on Earth who can remember the Beatles, and it's directed by Danny Boyle. Now, the premise is amazing, okay? And it's exactly as it states. There's a power outage, the dude gets hit by a car while he's on his bike, and when he wakes up, he's in this world where absolutely nobody knows who the Beatles are.
Yeah, the Beatles never existed.
Yeah, the Beatles never existed. So this guy starts, playing songs that he remembers the Beatles made, and everybody is blown away thinking that it's all his music. And he slowly climbs up the ladder to stardom. Now, most movies, they would leave it at that. Just let him get real popular, feel humble about it, and come down. But then, you also kind of have this small little dynamic to where his rise to fame isn't really as great as he wants. There's a romance being involved throughout the movie and everything. And the person that he's in love with starts to have her doubts about being with him because she's just this regular old person and he's one of the most famous musicians in the whole world. And it seems like fame is finally starting to get to him and everything, which makes this movie look a whole lot more interesting. What do you think, Brian?
I think it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's a fun premise, even if the world building doesn't hold up to scrutiny, but I'm trying to get past that. Trying to get past with that because I realize that's not the point of this movie. But I think it's fun, and we know that Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr, the two surviving Beatles, are going to be involved in some way. So they obviously are okay with this premise, even though they've been somewhat famously protective of the Beatles brand.
Oh, yeah. It was hinted that those two are going to be in the movie, because there's this one scene where he's on like a talk show being talked about or whatever. And the host says, well, there's these two people right here who claim that your songs are actually theirs. And you see two people start to walk towards the stage, you know, flip-flops and everything, which makes you assume that it's two of the Beatles and everything, you know. But it looks good. It looks like a really nice feel-good movie. I mean, you can't really go wrong with a movie that has the song Hey Jude in it. I mean, Across the Universe was one of my favorite movies, and that was all about the Beatles.
Fun fact, as a child, I was terrified of that song.
Hey Jude?
Yeah, because back in 2007, there was a remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which I saw a trailer for, and it terrified me. But before that, there was a Coca-Cola ad, I think it was, that had Hey Jude playing over it. And for some reason, I just conflated the two in my mind. So for years, I equated the terror of Invasion of the Body Snatchers with the Beatles song Hey Jude.
That is interesting.
I've gotten over it now, but that just...
Hey, it's fair enough, man. I mean...
Warning to parents, young brains are weird.
Yeah, fair enough, fair enough. Now, the next little trailer, I'm going to let Brian handle it. It's a DLC trailer for Final Fantasy 15. Take it away, my friend.
Yeah, so this is the trailer for the final Final Fantasy 15 DLC, the Arden DLC, detailing the, story of the game's main antagonist. And I really put this in here mainly because it's 13 minutes long. And that's because, aside from the first and last about minute of it, which are gameplay and, in-game trailers, it is an 11-minute anime prequel that details the story of how Arden got his powers, how he came to be. And while the DLC will be set in, right before he starts, essentially, the war between the inciting incident of Final Fantasy 15. This one takes place 2,000 years in the past, because, yes, he's 2,000 years old because of Demon Plague.
Man.
Yeah. And it makes you sympathize with the guy, because in the game, he's, sort of the, evil, charming villain who's evil and charming, and, it's suddenly revealed that he has a connection to the main protagonist, because... Of course he does. But this one actually makes you really sympathetic to why he's doing what he's doing. It actually makes you think that maybe... I mean, he does horrible things, but it makes him one of those things that maybe he's a little bit justified?
You know what? I gotta have a little bit of respect for that, because we have reached that era where a lot of the antagonists are redeemable, I noticed. Like, a few years ago, villains weren't really so redeemable. I mean, they had a bit of a just cause, but aside from characters like Dr. Octopus in Spider-Man 2, there weren't really that many villains that you genuinely felt bad about. So to hear that's the case, I gotta I gotta check it out, because that sounds really, really good. You don't really get that much character development all that often. And, ever since Black Panther and Infinity War, that's been happening a lot more often. I gotta give props to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, the next trailer that we have is for the new season of The Twilight Zone. The release date is April 1st, 2019, and it will be streaming on CBS's All Access streaming service. It'll be hosted by Jordan Peele, which I'm excited about, because he has been doing a pretty good job as a director and working on a lot of horror films. He's really, really good at what he does, And I honestly could see him being a pretty good host for a show like The Twilight Zone. And he's not the only celebrity showing up on this show, right, Brian?
Yeah, so far we've seen Adam Scott from things like Parks and Rec and Party of Five. Or, was it Party of Five? I think it was Party of Five. And Kumail Nanjiani from most recently Silicon Valley, though he's in everything because he's amazing. But yeah, we don't we don't know for sure the plot of any of the episodes because it's going to be like the original. It's going to be an anthology series of sci-fi, sci-fi pseudo horror
Weird stuff.
Yeah, weird stuff. The limits of sci-fi, not the outer limits, because that's a different show.
That is its own show. Yes.
Yes. But it's, we've got Adam Scott's character seemingly being, surrounded by this recurring number 01015. We've got Kumail Nanjiani, who seems to have a dog that doesn't exist. Again, it's a lot of rapid-fire shots from what could be one episode, what could be 5 different episodes. We're not sure. They're not giving anything away. But over the trailer, they play this, redo of the classic Twilight Zone theme that ends with the classic theme. And there's just this one shot of, it says hosted by Jordan Peele, and it keys over to him in a diner, and he just looks at the camera, and you get goosebumps. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm excited about this new season of the Twilight Zone because while it does still share its original elements of just the unknown, the realms of imagination and how far it can go, it felt like it implemented various effects from other shows. While watching this trailer, I also got vibes from shows like Black Mirror and Stranger Things. The way the filmography was working, the cinematography and everything like that. Mm-hmm. Which makes me even more excited because those 3 shows would be perfectly fused together to create something genuinely interesting and terrifying. And that was one of the things that I loved about the Twilight Zone. It was terrifying, but not in the, oh my god, that is so super scary, I'm going to have nightmares forever, but it's just more in the fact that it was so bizarre. You just couldn't help but have that small little sense of fear inside of you watching most episodes.
Yeah, it was scary not because it scared you, but because it challenged your sense of what reality is.
Yeah, and that's what, and that's why I really enjoyed the Twilight Zone, and that's why I'm so excited for this new season to drop. I really wish I had CBS All Access, and if any of you do have it and you managed to watch the Twilight Zone, please let us know your thoughts on this. We really want to hear your feedback. This looks like such a good show, and we want to know how you guys think about it.
Yeah.
Now, Brian, you go ahead and take away the next little trailer.
Okay, let's just get through this. Frozen 2. U.S. release date, November 22nd, 2019, starring Kristen Bell, Idina Menzel, Josh Gad, and others. Synopsis is, Elsa, Anna, Kristoff, and Olaf are going far into the forest to know the truth about an ancient mystery of their kingdom. Directed by Chris Buck and Jennifer Lee. Okay, so this story did not give us a lot of... This trailer did not give us a lot of story details. It was a lot of mostly silent shots with music played over them. There was a sequence at the beginning where it's essentially Elsa trying to run over the ocean with her powers and there are high waves that are knocking her down, and she's trying to get further and further out. And we don't know a lot about this movie. It looks like there's going to be some sort of fire magic at some point, maybe, to go along with Elsa's ice magic. Maybe that's what that was. We don't get any real plot details other than they're going to a forest. So I don't have a lot to say, because they don't really give us a lot to say about it. It's a lot of visuals and not a lot of, things that can be conveyed through me talking about it. I'm just sort of dreading this because I remember the times of Let It Go being everywhere.
Everywhere.
And I'm afraid even if this movie doesn't have the song that's quite that as infectious, it'll just bring Let It Go back.
I can believe that. I didn't watch the trailer myself because I'm not really too much of a Frozen fan, really.
I mean, neither am I, but...
we weren't the demographic, so it's fine for us to say that, So.
Yeah, and I think ultimately we have to step back and look and go, we are not the target audience for this. And the target audience for this is young children. And young children are going to enjoy it. And yeah, it's probably going to be a bit irritating at times, but that's essentially just young children irritating at times.
That's how you have to deal with it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't mind. I mean, I'm not really a big fan of Frozen, but I mean, it beats the other Frozen. That's about people being stuck in a chairlift. Yes, that was an actual movie.
Yes, I've read about it.
And it was horrible. In case you ever wanted to watch a really good review about it, check out the YouTube channel yourmoviesucks.org. He's got a pretty funny 2-part review on that movie. But, I mean... I have no complaints on Frozen 2. I'm sure it'll be a pretty good movie, just as good as the first one. Granted, it might not have as much of a smash hit song as the first one, because the first one really was right on the nail in its time, a good song. And usually when you have a song like that, it's really hard to follow up with a song just as good as that, usually in sequels and stuff.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I don't know.
Like, I think Lego Movie 2 just tried to do it with a follow-up to Everything Is Awesome, literally called The Very Catchy Song. And it's a song about how catchy the song is going to be. And I've seen reviews that call it one of the most forgettable songs in the movie.
Of course.
Because you can't force that. It's, there is no true formula for this. You can try and you can repeat elements and it might work, but there's no formula for catchiness.
Exactly. I mean, with the Lego Movie, when Everything Was Awesome became popular, when they made the song, it wasn't supposed to be, oh, this is going to be a super mega popular song, everyone's going to love it. It's just like, we need a good song for the movie, and we picked Everything Is Awesome, and it just so happened to have gotten really popular. You can't hit magic twice, lightning doesn't strike twice in the same spot, and blah, 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 blah. But, yeah, I mean, if Frozen 2 is good, that's good. I mean, I know my stepsister would probably be very excited to watch this movie once it finally drops. Now that about does it for trailer talk, ladies and gentlemen. If you have any trailers that you would like for us to talk about in next week's episode, we did have to delay the previous week. So if there was anything that you wanted to talk about in the next week's episode, be sure to let us know, mention it in the comments, or message us directly, or message Phonebooth's Facebook page, or the Voice of San Joaquin's Facebook page, and we'll get right on to that. Now, without further ado, it's time for us to enter our discussion pieces. Now, we only have 2 discussion pieces, and I'm going to let my good friend Brian lead these 2 because he's more informed on the subject than I am. Now, go ahead and take it away, my friend.
Okay, so Anthem came out for consoles yesterday. Though, actually, fun fact, the chart was actually wrong for the Pacific time zone because it launched at midnight Friday on the East Coast, but that means it launched on 9 p.m. Thursday for us over here on the West Coast. So you know that entire grid we showed you? Apparently that was
grid.
Yeah, it was also wrong for, because for us it launched on Thursday, not Friday. They couldn't even Anyway.
It made no sense.
Anyway, I've got probably about at least 12 hours in the Anthem right now. I think that's a good amount of time. I played through a good chunk of the story. I can tell I'm coming towards the end of it, I hope. Which is sad to say about a BioWare game. I've taken part in most of the activities, which unfortunately aren't a lot. So I'm going to give some thoughts. Now, the story, BioWare, big studio known for their deep, complex stories, emotionally resonant. None of that is in Anthem. Anthem is one of the most boilerplate stories of evil person wants to do evil thing with object, you need to stop them. And it is told so poorly. The first cutscene of the game is this 30-second thing of them explaining here's the Anthem of Creation, here's what javelins are, here's why we're all in forts, here's why this thing is bad, don't touch this thing. And then we're thrown in a tutorial mission in the Heart of Rage, which is essentially, in the world of Anthem, there's the Anthem of Creation, which is this uncontrollable force of creation. But it can be harnessed by what are called Shaper Relics. However, humanity is really bad at using Shaper Relics and tend to set them off in these massive things called cataclysms. Giant storms that warp the landscape that can kill millions. And the Heart of Rage is one of those cataclysms set off 10 years earlier. So you go in with your team, you're about to stop it, and everyone dies. Except for you and a few of your teammates. So then, smash cut to 2 years later, everyone's given up on your order of freelancers, You failed to start the Heart of Rage, and everyone's just given up on you. They haven't given up on you because your order failed to stop the Heart of Rage from being created under their base 10 years earlier, where most freelancers already died. Apparently everyone was fine with that and still believed in the freelancers, but a few of you dying trying to start the Heart of Rage later, that just completely breaks all the trust. No one has faith in you anymore. Not the massive disaster, the smaller disaster. Anyway, so that's where you are. You need to, team up with people, stop the Heart of Rage, this, that. And I say this and that because they do one of the worst storytelling sins of just throwing words at you. At one point, a character says, "We need to stop the Monitor from entering the Heart of Rage and getting the Cenotaph." And despite all of those things being explained, I still looked at it and went, "The heck are you talking about? What were those words?" Because they'd explained them, but they hadn't really... They discussed them. They hadn't explained them. You know that the Cenotaph is a thing. And it's the thing that made the Heart of Rage. And you know the Monitor is a guy that wants the thing that created the Heart of Rage for unexplained reasons.
Kind of sounds like what Vanilla Destiny's story was, where there's a lot of stuff that was discussed, but not necessarily explained.
Yeah, and see... Destiny made a lot of the same sense too, but they did flesh out a lot of what was being said with the Grimoire, and I haven't delved into the Codex of Anthem, which is essentially, all the story bits compiled here and there. You get like 5 from completing a mission for a bunch of random stuff. I haven't delved into it too much, and it does seem like there's some sort of story going on behind the scenes. Like, we know the governor of Fort Tarsus, your main base, was killed a while ago, but we don't know if it was meant to kill him or kill someone with him, and there's something about a grain shortage going on that a bunch of different characters are being affected by, but you never really get into why there's a grain shortage right now. So maybe those are going to be explained later. Maybe they're explained in the Codex. I'm not sure, because it's all, side story stuff. It's not part of the main campaign. So the story... Don't go into this expecting a BioWare story. Don't go into this expecting a good story, even. Mm-hmm. Go into this knowing that the story is just going to be there, and you're going to have to deal with it.
Okay, well, that's the story, but what about gameplay?
Gameplay is... I'd say it's a lot of fun. The moving around as the javelins, which are your robot suits, is a lot of fun. And each one is incredibly varied. There's the Ranger Javelin, which is sort of the jack of all trades. It doesn't do anything especially well, but it also doesn't really have any weaknesses. It's, it's a good starter javelin, though it doesn't actually make you start with it. Then there's my personal favorite right now, the Storm. Now, the Storm is a wizard. Mm-hmm. It can cast, essentially, spells. I've currently got a setup where I can freeze people and then hit them with lightning, which causes a combo for bonus damage. So I can essentially blow up huge groups of enemies if I need to. It also can float in the air almost indefinitely. It can't fly indefinitely. There's a difference between floating and flying, but it can hover mid-air with extra shields for a good few minutes, as long as you don't get overheated by enemy attacks, because there's an overheating mechanic for flight powers.
Fair enough.
The Colossus is a lot of fun. It's what I played mostly during the demo. It's, you are big guy with big guns that takes the damage and deals it back out. These other guys can use pistols. Well, you've got a giant mini gun. You can build a giant shield in front of yourself to take, shots while your comrades try to heal up. And you don't have shields. You just have, your chunk of health, which means it's very easy to, lose it, because you don't regenerate health. You regenerate shields. You have to get pickups to regenerate health.
So you're like the Hulkbuster of the team, basically.
Pretty much. You are the tank. And that's really how you can describe each javelin in Anthem. There are 4 of them, and they each fall into the standard D&D archetypes. There's the mage, there's the warrior, and then, of course, there's the interceptor, which is the rogue thief. He has the lowest health and shields of all of them, but he also has the fastest on-ground movement. He is what the community has dubbed Anime Boy. He is a ninja. He, runs in super fast. He does not run with his arms behind him, unfortunately, which I think is a great loss.
He had to have done the Naruto run.
He doesn't get to Naruto run, but he can... His attacks are mainly based around melee. He slices people up with his arm blades. He has an ultimate where he goes invulnerable and gets super damage from melee attacks. He is the ninja.
Nice.
Yeah, and I haven't played a lot with him yet. I just unlocked him last night before I went to bed. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to probably play around with him today. But he looks like he's going to be fun. And they all have their distinct roles and their distinct classes, but it's also balanced in a way that you don't need each of them in your team. Like, I did a mission that was me and 3 other Storms. All 4 of us were Storms, and we had no problem. There are no areas where you have to be a specific class, but there are areas where being different classes can be advantageous for different combos. There are also areas where all being the same class can be advantageous for, specific combos.
Now, that's one thing I wanted to ask about. One thing that everybody was very excited about with Anthem was the fact that it is, while having the opportunity to be a single-player game, also a multiplayer game. How is the multiplayer aspects?
The multiplayer is not as bad as it could have been, which is a fairly loaded statement. Okay, so it feels a lot like Anthem was intended to be a single-player game, but then a lot of its mechanics were reworked to be a multiplayer game. And it's, it's harder to play as single-player, which, that's pretty standard.
Mm-hmm.
But you look at a lot of this and go, okay, this is a story where you are the main protagonist, and, all these things are happening to you. But then in some cutscenes in the background, there are 3 other javelins just sort of standing there hanging out, not reacting to anything.
Like Destiny.
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. Though even in Destiny cutscenes, usually it was just you, and they sort of pretended the rest of the group wasn't there for a cutscene.
Okay.
The multiplayer, it had issues with a lot of lag at the actual launch last week, and they patched that in the day 1, day 7 patch for the console launch. But now there's a real problem with rubber banding, which is when, in certain multiplayer games, when the connection is not great server-side, it means you can run forward, but then the server has to reset because the connection, so you're back where you started, and you try running forward, and you get rubber-banded back. And that has been not a constant problem. I've gone through most of it without it being an issue, but there were some times where I had to just, shut down the game and restart it because the rubber banding was so bad, I couldn't do anything.
Man. Okay. Well, overall rating out of 10, what would you give it?
I'd give it a 6 out of 10 right now.
That's fair.
Yeah, I'd say it has potential. I would advise people to wait on buying it. Don't buy it until it has a bit more content, because there's definitely a distinct lack of content, but BioWare's actually released a 90-day game plan where they have, a bunch of new world events coming in, a bunch of new items, new quests, new this and that, and guilds are coming in a few months. And I don't know why guilds weren't there from the start, and I think that's my main problem with Anthem, is technically it's fine. It's a beautiful game, it runs well, the combat is great, but there are things that are so basic to a gameplay experience that aren't there. Like, on the map, you can't put down waypoints.
That's weird.
In this big open world, you can't put down waypoints. There's not, a death marker for where you last died so you can try to pick up the fight again. There's no guild system. There's this weird, complicated alliance system that I still don't fully understand. You gain experience and pour it into your alliance bank, and at the end of the week, you get an amount of coins from that, but your friends also get coins from it too. I think that's how it works.
Interesting.
But yeah, there's a lot of very basic quality of life features that aren't there. And I feel like if this game had 6 more months, not to, just of polish, just so they could add in these fairly basic things, it could have been a lot better.
Do you think it would be taking the same route that Destiny did? Because when Destiny Vanilla first came out, there was a beautiful scenery, gameplay was okay and everything, but there was a lot that was missing, and it required a DLC later on for it to become more and more interesting.
It is sort of going the Destiny route, but the big difference is there will be no paid story DLC for Anthem. There is microtransactions which are funding free story DLC. If you bought the game, you've bought all the story that's coming with it.
Oh, well, that's great.
Yeah, all the updates are going to be free. I mean, they're going to be adding more stuff to the microtransaction shop, which is fine. I've been playing for, the upper tiers of expensive stuff that they have in the shop right now, because it's a small selection of things. The most expensive one is 61,000 coin, and it starts off with 40,000, but I'm currently at 71,000, so that's about 30,000 I've gotten in a few days. And of course, most of that is from completing one-time challenges, get a certain amount of kills with this weapon. You get this tier 1 challenge, you get 800 coin from it. So I'm not sure what the gaining coin will be like after, a few weeks once all the challenges are gone, when you're relying on the Alliance bank system to get coins.
Yeah.
So right now they seem fine. It might turn out that it's a horrible way to get coins and it's, horribly balanced. I'm not sure. It's going to take time, unfortunately. Which is why reviews are hard to do for games now, honestly, is because it's just... Games are unfortunately never finished even when they launch.
Yeah, that's true. Even when betas come out, they seem to be promoted as almost finished content when betas should originally just be bug testing and whatnot.
Yeah.
Now that was, a fun little topic, talking about Anthem and everything. But then our last discussion piece is a very serious one. It is a very serious issue that seems to be affecting the video games industry. And most importantly, the people who are working in the games industry. Now we have a little bit of extra news to add on to this subject, since it's been happening since the previous week, but we weren't able to do a show last week in order to talk about what's going on over there. So we're going to discuss this, and I'm going to let Brian lead it because he's a lot more informed on this than I am. Take it away, man.
Okay, so last week Activision had their quarterly earnings call, where they announced that they had hit record highs and record sales and record profit right before they announced they were laying off 8% of their workforce, or 800 people. This was a mass layoff that was not communicated to employees by the company beforehand. The layoffs were happening as this call was going on. But some employees had been warned by media outlets that had learned these layoffs were going to happen. But that is, a company announced record revenue and also laid off 8% of their workers. 800 people lost their jobs, despite the executives bragging about how much money the company made. Now, that was last week. A few days ago, it was announced that ArenaNet, the developer of Guild War 2, is expecting layoffs soon. They haven't actually happened yet, but the specter is looming. Now, Fire Monkeys, EA's Australian studio that focuses on mobile gaming, lost 40 to 50 people from their staff. However, that represents about 5% of all of Australia's game development workforce. Australia doesn't have a huge game development, but 40 to 50 people, 5% of game dev jobs are just gone in Australia now.
Yeah, this whole thing's unfortunate. And it's really upsetting, especially when we talk about the case of Bobby Kotick.
Bobby Kotick. Bobby Kotick is the CEO of Activision Blizzard and has been for quite some time now, and has overseen some of the highest profits in the company's history. He's also allegedly, and I have to put an allegedly here, completely unscrupulous with business practices and against worker rights. And allegedly, because this is all stories, none of this has been confirmed. But allegedly, Bobby Kotick is focused only on money and not on, worker well-being or even caring about workers, basically. And this comes after a few months of other stories of employee mistreatment, from CD Projekt Red, crunch time, from Red Dead Redemption 2, crunch time, from Telltale, tons of crunch time followed by a layoff of a majority of their workforce without warning. And this happens because game devs are not unionized. There's no game developers union to protect worker rights, to fight for workers, to stop mass layoffs like this from happening. And honestly, we try to remain politics-free on this show, but this is something that affects the industry we love, that we talk about, and that affects human lives.
Yeah.
At this point, game devs need to unionize to protect their jobs, because these mass layoffs, this is normal for the industry. This is something you go into this industry expecting to happen to you. And of course, you convince yourself that it could never happen to you, but it does. Mass layoffs are normal for the game development industry because AAA publishers don't care about long-term profits. They care about short-term profits, and they'll do anything to keep those short-term profits up. The reason Activision Blizzard was able to announce that they'd had, record sales was because their profits compared to their new, expenditures, losing 800 people, were so much higher. That's how they got their record. That's how they got their short-term, financial gain, was by laying off 8% of their staff to make themselves look better. But what are they going to do next year? Are they going to lay off another 8% of their staff, another 800 here, another 800 there? How long until they have no staff, can't develop games, and can't keep producing these record profits? Because that's just it's not sustainable. This model is not sustainable. And the executives know that, because famously, Nintendo's president, before he passed away, Satoru Iwata, when the 3DS failed, because it was actually a failure at launch, he took a 50% pay cut. And when the Wii U failed, he took another 50% pay cut. You know why? Because he realized that attempting to get these short-term profits by firing employees was not going to fix anything. It wasn't going to make anything better. So he looked at his multi-million-dollar paycheck and said, you know what? We can cover our losses just with 50% of my paycheck here. And he wasn't the only executive to do it either. Others like Shigeru Miyamoto did it as well. But Iwata, as the CEO, was the most visible of them.
Meanwhile, Bobby Kotick just recently got a bit more money.
Yeah, he got a bonus because of these record profits. But see, Nintendo realized that they couldn't just sacrifice their workforce for short-term profits. They realized the long-term.
It would ruin morale.
Yeah, and that's something that Western game devs haven't realized. They want short-term profits to please investors, and they don't seem to realize that they are barreling towards a cliff edge. This is not a sustainable industry. This is not a sustainable business plan. This is not how it should work. This is not how you treat human beings.
I agree. When it comes to this whole situation, there are a multitude of problems that are going on. I'm glad that you brought up Nintendo, because when asked about this, they mentioned, when you fire large amounts of people in your game's development company in order to try and bring profits, there are side effects that go along with that. And the most crucial side effect to this is morale. People aren't as dedicated to create quality content for people to enjoy, quality content to improve your sales, because they are terrified of the looming threat that at any random point in time they can get fired, just that way they can increase their sales margins. Nintendo realized this, which is why they don't do it very often, if at all, because they want to keep their employees happy, very diligent, very excited to do their work, and more great content gets made from it. Then you look at people like Activision. They can make a game with record profit sales, like Black Ops 4, for example, and still complain that it wasn't the amount of money that they had wanted, and things like that, And then they focus so much on their shareholders that, as you said, they lay off people for short-term profits and whatnot. This will ruin morale. People won't be as dedicated to creating content, to create really great games, to improve your sales, because they're going to be so terrified of being fired that they're going to enter crunch time. And we have seen what has happened when a game company focuses exclusively on crunch time. This was how Telltale crashed and burned. This is what caused so much controversy with Rockstar around Red Dead Redemption 2. There's no good coming from crunch time. You need to treat your employees fairly if you want them to create the content and outcome that you expect. And the fact that these people aren't unionized, the fact that these people don't have the same rights as people in the films industry or people in any other form of business, it's not fair. As much as certain people like to talk down about video games, they are an art style. It requires a lot of hard work and dedication. There are so many departments behind creating a single video game to come out, from AAA development companies all the way down to working in the garage indie developers. There is a lot of work put into these things. And the fact that these people don't have a union, somebody to let them know, hey, we will make sure that you are treated fairly in the games industry, is appalling, because then things like this will keep happening. More and more people can be fired off in bulk. Just that way their little charts look well enough on it and everything. And I've talked to Brian about this before as well. I can predict a few things that will happen, honestly. And this is in no way, shape, or form a threat. This is my personal opinion, and you're more than welcome to disagree with me on this. This is just my opinion. I can't help but predict that eventually all these people who are getting fired are going to start a protest. These people will show up to the buildings of these AAA studios and everything and protest, demanding that employees who are still hired in these game companies, if not themselves at least the people who are still working, will be able to be unionized. Now, of course, AAA development studios are probably going to ignore this at first, and perhaps some people who are working in the company at the moment will probably go on strike as well, stop working and leave. Now, they'll probably rely on hiring scabs for a moment, People have lost their jobs. They're looking for more work in the games industry, And I wouldn't blame them for hopping onto the opportunity to work again and everything. But this will not help them. The media will cripple them enough because, as much as people like to joke about games journalism, when they find something controversial, they really know how to cripple a company because of it. And eventually they are going to have to bend the knee and finally let these people get unionized. Now, I kind of wish it was more straightforward to them just finally saying, yeah, you know what, these people do deserve fair treatment and we will give them the unionship they deserve. But it seems right now AAA companies don't get the memo. They won't get it through their heads. And this is only going to affect the games that we play further on. Staff is shortening, okay? Less people to work on various departments. Crunch time will be implemented, which means there's going to be either less content, less quality of content, whatever have you. And I'm kind of afraid to see how things are going to happen, in the games industry. There really is no telling what's going on right now. All we can predict right now is that odds are companies like Activision are probably going to be laying off more and more people because they're so focused on the shareholders instead of who they should be more worried about, the employees of these studios. And that's about all I really have to say about that, I suppose.
Yeah.
There's not really much else to say. I feel horrible for all these people who are being laid off in Activision, Project Red, Telltale, all these people. They never deserved the treatment they got. They didn't deserve the hand that they were dealt, And while I'm glad that these people are finding work and that other game companies are actively trying to employ these people, they deserve more than that. They deserve the same rights as any other worker, and I'm upset that they don't have these rights. And I can only leave it at that.
Yeah,
I'm just very, very disappointed right now. We're sorry that we had to end today's episode on a bad note, but it was an important subject that needs to be talked about. Mm-hmm. One that everybody should be talking about right now because this is a very serious issue in the world of pop culture. But anyways, that about does it for today's episode of The Phone Booth. As always, my name is Edward Heitman. Joining me in the studio is my good friend and co-host, Brian Rodriguez. And, as always, our show is dedicated to the world of pop culture. If there is a topic you want us to talk about regarding movies, games, TV shows, comics, whatever have you, you name it, and we'll do our best to discuss it. Now, be sure to check out our page. Be sure to check out the Voice of San Joaquin's page to find some more great quality content. And as always, have a wonderful, wonderful afternoon.